So much advice about wildflower meadows is all directed at the sowing. You open a seed packet and you expect all of the different varieties that are on that seed packet to germinate. You're filled with hope about how your garden's going to transform into this pictorial meadow. All of the seeds on the packet are going to germinate miraculously. But what happens once you've actually sown it? Do you cut it? How often? Why cut it at all? Lots of invertebrates use the dead stems of plants to overwinter in, and they might lie there larvae depending on the life cycle of the invertebrate. Other animals might use it for shelter. Well, let's come back to what most people mean by a meadow. People mean a lot of different things when they talk about a meadow, to the point where you don't really know what they mean. Are they talking about cornfield annuals? Do they just mean that they're not cutting the lawn? For the purposes of this video, I'm referring to a traditional hay meadow. That's the habitat that has been rapidly lost since the Second World War as a result of that land being turned over to arable agriculture and animal fodder now being changed over to using predominantly silage rather than hay. In a competitive environment like the UK, an uncut field would just turn into a forest if it left to its own devices. Grassland doesn't tend to thrive underneath a tree canopy. On improved grassland and fertile land, plants other than the ones that thrive in a typical hay meadow will dominate that field and subsequently mean that your hay meadow isn't going to flourish. Regular cutting helps to impoverish the soil because all of the arisings and the energy that the plant puts into itself are cut and removed because they're given to animals as fodder. Because the use of hay has become less common and that land has not been valued in the same way, it means that that habitat has rapidly been lost. This means that an ecosystem that's been developed over a long period of time has rapidly been lost, and it means that lots of species are then no longer able to have a feeding source or a place that they use to lay their eggs, and whatever other parts that are essential to their life cycle have gone. Grassland needs outside influence to maintain it. It's either got to be cut, there have got to be fires, like with tundra, it's got to be excessively cold so that trees can't grow. That, or some sort of herbivore, has got to regularly keep the vegetation low to the ground. So in order to mimic the environment that I sought to create, I looked to agricultural techniques as my way of managing that piece of land. Haymaking is a highly weather dependent activity. That's one reason why silage is preferred to make winter fodder for animals. If it rains, the grass doesn't dry properly. It needs to be harvested at a stage that's correct for the plant's life cycle in order to maximise the nutrients that's left in the hay. So in the Northern Hemisphere, that's normally done around July the 4th. This year in the UK, April was really dry, May was really cold and wet, and the rest of the summer was fairly cool. So we were running a fair bit behind. So by mid-August, it seemed like it was about the right time to be making that cut. You normally want a period that's likely to be sunny, and I knew that the week that I was cutting mine, it was a sunny week. I don't own livestock, so why do I care about the nutritional value? It's a good barometer that you can use to work out what stage you want to be cutting those plants. So I'm mimicking that method of land management in order to create the habitat that I want. Just want to make clear, don't try this at home. It took me a lot of shin conditioning in order to be able to trim in shorts like this. There are actually some other good reasons to not bother using a strimmer, and a scythe would be better. I've left a link in the comments if you wanted to actually buy one, but I have a strimmer because I do have a maintenance business, so it makes sense for me to just use what I've got. But the strimmer chops it up into tiny little bits, which isn't so good for collection. It's also a bit more dangerous and you're risking injuring wildlife. Then leave it to dry for a few days and rake it up. You can also turn it over, which is known as tedding, which allows it to evenly dry if some of the stuff at the bottom hasn't dried properly. The effect of allowing this drying also means that any seeds have got time to drop. I wouldn't know, but it feels like nice hay to me. It's only going in the compost bin anyway. Hey ho. I'm cutting in mid-August. When do you plan to cut yours? If you've got some experience with this, I'd love to know. And the yellow rattle that I sowed earlier in the year that I left in the fridge doesn't appear to have effectively germinated. Kind of expected that. But it's really essential to growing a meadow in the Northern Hemisphere because it allows things other than the dominant grasses to thrive because it's a semi-parasite on them. I'm also going to sow some more of that yellow rattle, which is a good time to sow it between August and November. That's when its seeds would naturally drop and it mimics its normal natural environment because it does need to be cold shocked into germinating by a decent winter. I've also started a Discord, which I'll leave a link to in the description. Come and join if you fancy joining my sort of weird clubs and you want to chat about stuff and ask questions. You can make any requests for the sorts of content that you might want me to make, the sorts of experiments you might want me to run, and I don't know, whatever else you want me to do. Just hang out and chat. Anyway, get outside, try it, and let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching.